Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
It's
Saturday. So
And
confusing.
we have power.
And we have power on a Saturday. It's like, woo, party time.
Party time. All right.
Excellent.
So yesterday was
Bill
a
and
lot
Ted.
of fun.
It was.
We did couching, and we really enjoyed everything.
A lot of you joined us, which is always nice when we see
absolutely.
that we're having a party with many people instead of just ourselves.
Yes, it's a lot more exciting when
It's a
there's
lot more fun to
yes.
do that. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good morning. I see Sue and Dee and
Mom.
Mom. We have a lot of things to talk about today.
We do.
So,
yeah.
So
I personally just finished a quilt using our built-in edge to edge.
You did. Yes.
And it was
Wonder
a
Woman.
gift. So it was a Wonder Woman quilt.
Hi, Shirley.
And I successfully gave it away.
Yay.
So it was easier than I expected it to. I mean, it went. There was a lot of hoopings because
there's a lot of hoopings.
the person that I gave it to was 6 foot tall, so it was a big quilt.
Yes.
It was supposed to be like a lap quilt, but I was like, okay, her lap's bigger than mine. I was like, I better probably make this a little longer, so she can cover her toes.
Yes.
So it did have a lot of hoopings, but it went really fast, and this is so smart.
Yeah.
You know, we keep talking about how smart these machines are, and it really is. It tells you everything to do.
It does.
So even if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not afraid to push the button, you can figure it out.
You can. And I mean, really, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't stitch where you want it to stitch.
And
if you give a quilt and you've got some overlap of your stitches and your person says
like,
something,
hey, what happened there?
Just take the quilt back. And
they're
they don't get any more.
Nope,
Buy them
more.
one at Walmart.
Yep, they just get a.
They should not be your friend.
Nope, they're off that gift list very
That's right.
permanently.
Good morning, Debbie. So it's a lot of fun. We're gonna start. I'm gonna throw up a little.
Don't throw up a little, please. That would be really bad. Let's not do that.
I'm going to make this a little bit bigger go back to the beginning.
Yes, we were reading it.
So today we wanted to talk about edge-to-edge quilting, and that's our information just in case you didn't know. And
anybody didn't already have that.
It's funny, we never really introduce ourselves because we just assume that everybody knows who we are. So
well, usually our names are underneath there, but we didn't do that.
We didn't do that. So, but you're Lisa. Lisa's in purple today.
I am in purple,
and Sarah is in blue today. So,
but quite frankly, we answer to each other's names because you guys all call us whatever pops out at that moment. So
it's only a problem when you're like, yeah, I talked to Sarah yesterday, and she says, and we discussed this, and I'm like, I wasn't here yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about.
Got nothing.
I'm gonna need a little more description. So, anyways, but that is us, and today we're gonna talk a little bit about
edge-to-edge quilting.
So, what is edge-to-edge? So, it's kind of a term that has garnered into the domestic sewing world from long arms.
Yes.
And
so if you have ever quilted by check, that's basically what they're doing.
Yep.
They're just doing it by the edge of one side of your quilt to the edge of the other side.
Yes.
But they're connected this same way.
The same concept.
So
yes.
You know, when you choose a design that you tell them, you know, I want flowers or I want bears or whatever, when you would tell them that, you are choosing an edge-to-edge design.
Right. Because there's really two options here. You have custom or you have an edge-to-edge or maybe an overall design.
Overall, yep.
Which is basically one design moving from the entire quilt in some sort of repeated pattern. And for embroidery world, if we want a true edge-to-edge, so something that we can't see like
the starts and the
a break in the stitch.
The break in the stitch.
We would want something that starts and stops at the same spot on our on the design.
So if you look on that picture there, that explains that. So you can see that in this particular design, that start and stop is at the bottom of the design. It is
Yes.
not always at the bottom. Sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it doesn't matter where,
No.
but it will be horizontal across from the left to the right,
Or vertical.
or vertical from the top to the bottom.
bottom.
But it will always be aligned from one side to the other, wherever, whichever direction it's going. It will always be completely aligned, and that is the point that you need to match up.
Yeah, and essentially the direction that the points are lining up is probably the direction that you want to start stitching. You want to go in a row going in that manner. So in this one, this design would stitch out better if I did a row going from the top to like top
From the
left,
top left
or to the right.
Or center left,
center
if
left.
you wanted to do it that way, but from left to right or right to left, but don't start in the middle.
Yes, exactly.
And
don't
then
go
go
top
up
to bottom with this one.
It wouldn't pan out so swell.
Right.
Not so good.
No.
So hopefully that made more sense than not. There you go. Edge to edge in a nutshell. So there's different types of edge to edge ways that you can do that.
And like everybody's doing it now. So we're just touching base on two of the manufacturing people who probably are most widely known right now for this, but they do their edge to edge designs completely different.
Totally.
Yes. So we have is it Amilee?
I think it's Amilee, like Amilee, but with an A at the top.
So Scott Designs, A Scott Designs.
I think it's like Amilee.
I think
is what it sounds like. It's just with a little bit more
Yeah, I always feel like I'm just saying
butchering
it,
and I feel so
wrong.
bad when I say someone's name wrong. So I hope we're not killing it. So sorry.
So she's kind of the original, the
been
OG
out for a while, right?
of edge to edge quilting. My book is dated from like 2014. So she's been doing this for a very long time.
And when you say original, just for clarification, we are talking embroidery edge to edge.
Embroidery edge to edge, yes. So, and she now has she has a traditional edge to edge version out, which came out in about 2014-ish area, give or take a couple of years. And then she's got tons of expansion packs out. So there are lots and lots of choices for her designs. But you need to get the book. The book gives you the instructions.
Yes.
So I've thrown up like the Cliff Notes version.
You're just throwing up a lot today, aren't you? Are you feeling okay?
So the Cliff Notes version of what we're doing here, and then just a little snippet of what the back of one of the expansion packs look like. She has basically two sizes, a standard one, and then like a mega pack. And the mega pack has like bigger designs for like the 9.5 by 14 and our 10 by 16 type hoops. Everything else goes to like, I think 8 by 12. And then she does have them like 6 by varying sizes.
Which of course, if you think back to 2014,
we didn't have
those mega hoops.
We did not.
So that makes perfect sense.
Yes. And with these designs, you basically, you are encouraged to mark your quilt, and you are encouraged to start in the center of your quilt. And again, depending on where the lineup of the particular design is, whether or not it is on a left and right plane, so horizontal versus your vertical plane, would depend upon how you drew your lines out on your quilt. So it may not be going from the left and right like I have it here. It could be top to bottom or vice versa or whatever. But the concept is we go down one row, and then we start in the center and we move to our right, which is nice because that means that we start with all of the bulk on the inside of the machine, and each time we get less instead of getting more. So you kind of are unrolling it as you go, and then you kind of do A, B, A, B, A, B. So she has two designs in there and you alternate them. And we will show you guys a little snippet of how this works in a little bit more detailed. And then she has a brand new program called Edge to Edge Pro. And the Pro program are not embroidery files.
Right.
So you have to use a computer program. So And I say this with the nicest possible way that I can. If you are not the type of person who uses a computer, do not
or
invest.
are friendly with your computer when you use it.
That's right. If you do not like using a computer, if you struggle with computer, do not invest in the Pro. The Pro is a fantastic program,
Yes.
but you do need to
you
be
will need
comfortable
to be
using
manipulating them in the computer.
Yes, because you have to use, if you don't already own Dime software, you have to use their free version, which is called Toolshed, because that is the file extension that you get. And then you have to essentially make the design the size that you want, and then you save it in the machine format that you need. So that is basically what we have in her Pro program. And then we have, that brings us to like the Kimberbell clear blue tiles.
Which we have talked about this actually in fairly amount of detail before, but we are going to run through it. We're going to mark a piece, small piece, but we're going to mark it so you guys can see how you would mark an entire piece. And then we will do a stitch out. We're not going to do a lot because it's kind of self-explanatory. Once you see one, it makes perfect sense. So the idea with this is that you would mark it. These do not connect, which is what makes this brilliant, because you can fudge. And you can fudge really easily if needed. So if you got like, oh, I didn't do that quite right, it's okay. You keep going. It's going to work out, which is phenomenally self-assuring.
Yes.
But there are oodles of patterns available and oodles of sizes. So again, there is the essentials set, and then there is the expansion set. So if you have the larger hoop sizes and you want those larger templates, you start with the basics and then move forward and get the larger piece. So similar in thought process there. And just like with the Amilee, you want to start with the base. So everybody needs that book, and everybody needs the essentials set here. So if you are going to do this, you have to buy that book, or you have to buy the essential set, and then you can bonus out and buy more if you want it. This is kind of, I love puzzles. So I think that's partly why I really like this, is because I don't have to use the same size design. And I mean size by hooping size. But all of the quilting is the same roughly size loop and swirl, no matter whether I'm putting it in a 2x2 hoop or whether I'm putting it in a 12x12 hoop. So I can put 12x12 hoop, 12 by 8 hoop or whatever, but the swirls will match. So I can literally fill in little spots. I can do decorative little things here, there, and anywhere, which in my opinion is a brilliant way to go. So you don't have to resize anything because it's already done for you.
Exactly. Which is what makes that so different than everybody else's edge-to-edge versions. Typically, when I would teach traditional edge-to-edge, I would tell people to pick a hoop and stick with that hoop. And regardless of how it's going to math out, you're going to need to keep using that same hoop, because theoretically,
if you
the
resize,
designs, it's noticeable because the start and stop point cannot match. So you could do a row of 8x10 designs, and then you could do a row of like 6x6 designs.
But you certainly couldn't intermatch the 6x6 into
because the starting and stopping
would
points
not meet up.
Would not
which is what makes this fun.
Yes, because there's no starting and stopping point. You're just getting close.
You mark your crosshair of where you need to put the center of the design, and you hit go. It's just brilliant. So that is clear blue tiles. And again, we've got that to show you. We're not going to in-depth that. We've got other videos that like totally take the entire thing apart. But we are going to mark and then stitch one for you guys. So you can see that too. Good morning, Marilyn. Hi, Lois.
And then we have what's brand new to us, which are the not quilting features per se in our Luminaire or Solaris. That's really what sets this apart in the industry, but the edge-to-edge feature. So if you have any of the versions of Luminaire or Solaris that you have upgraded to a number 3. So that was the most recent update that just came out in August. Yeah, so August of last year. Some people are just getting there.
Yes, I know. So sad.
But the brand new upgrade. So if you had a 1, you can upgrade your 1 to a 2 and a 2 to a 3, or a 1 to a 3. I do recommend getting a 2 in between there.
Agreed.
For a lot less than purchasing a brand new machine, for sure. But you will have this new feature, and we are going to show how to set this up. And again, we have that class coming up, not next week, but the following week. And if you have a Luminaire or a Solaris and you want more in-depth information on how to do this, like when we show you how to do it, if you're like, yeah, I still need more, that's the time you want to come to that class, because that's really where
you can ask your questions. We're going to get down to the details in the hands-on, the deep dive, exactly. So that's going to be the hands-on. You know, this is kind of the overview, if you will, of all of the different types. So if you've got really specific questions, you know, how do I fix this? You know, those kinds of things. There's obviously no way we can do that here, because we wouldn't understand your questions. So those are the things that we would love to have you come in and we can deep dive into. So that would be a perfect opportunity for that.
Yes, and what makes that so different is the math.
Not having to do it.
Yeah, the computer does it for you. So you have 10 built-in designs, and then you plug it in and you pick your hoop, and then it literally kind of gives you like an animation, right?
It does. It gives you a picture on the screen that says, okay, please put your quilt in your hoop and have it look like this. And then have it this edge, which projects into your hoop, because we have that beautiful projector. It says, so put it here. And you're like, move arrow, ding, 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 ding. And it moves right where you want it to go. And then you're like, okay, rotate to make sure that, you know, you're not crooked. It says, make sure that this part's lined up. And you go, okay, oh, yep, I'm 1 degree off. And you hit the 1 degree button and it snaps into place. And you're like, hey, look at that. I'm set. You hit go and it
does it for you.
It does it for you. And then it tells you how to line up the next one.
Yes.
It's so smart.
It is so smart. So, the Amilee designs, if you have any of the Brother or Babylock machines that have the cameras, this is going to be a no-brainer for you, because literally you can see that you're butting your pieces up to it.
You know where those starts and stops are. You can see that it's happening right where you want it before you stitch.
And use it. You have those features on your machine. Definitely use that.
Absolutely.
For the rest of the world, and it's a big group of people who don't have those, the reason that this works is because you make this template, and that's kind of how it works itself out. But you will want to kind of get comfortable with your machine, moving through, like finding your first stitch, checking out your kind of corners and the perimeters of your design. If that says to you like, no, yeah, that's just entirely too much work, but you want to do edge to edge, then I would recommend the Kimberbell system. Would you not?
It is definitely easier from a figuring out perspective. But if you don't like the puzzle, I mean, you don't have to puzzle it. You can literally say, okay, I'm going to use my 8x12 and boom, 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 boom.
Exactly.
And, you know, overthrow each side, and, you know, totally depends on what you want. But yes, I would say that the Kimberbell is no math.
Yes.
And an easier brain process.
Right. And you have to push less buttons on your machine.
Definitely.
So if you know, some people are like, oh, I know where all of the buttons are on my machine. And some people are like, you want me to do what?
Where? What are you talking about? My machine can do that? I love that question.
That's right.
But remind me about a pen when we get to
a
clear
pen.
blue.
Okay.
And I was going to say something, but we're in the wrong. We'll get there. Okay, so let's start with
the Scott designs.
Yes, the Scott. A Scott.
A Scott.
All right. So, couple
grab the book.
things.
Yep.
designs and how they will appear. So the book, which again, if you want to do the system, this is the first purchase that you'll be, so it's literally a CD with designs. And then I'm not going fast or slow enough that anybody can copyright, screw her over, because we don't want to do that. But this is literally the directions and the information on how to use the A's, the B's, how to set it up, all of that. So when we say that there's math, and it's not that it's hard, there's just more steps.
There are more steps.
Okay, so, but it's not like I can't do it steps, but it is more steps than sitting down with a clear blue tile or something like that. So that is the book. And those are going to be the base sizes. And then there are expansion packs, jumbo packs. So the jumbo, do you want,
yeah, jumbo is the one
are
that
going to be for the larger file sizes.
Yep.
I'll flip them over. It actually tells more about what's in them than the front does. So here is a standard expansion. So you're just buying more design types to add to what came in the book itself.
Yep.
And then again, the jumbos are the larger files that you can use in those bigger hoops. So, and we like things big, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. The bigger the better.
Bigger the better, absolutely. So, really cute. And, you know, I tend to personally like a lot of detail in my embroidery.
Yeah.
But that is not really what you're looking for in an edge to edge.
No.
So, I can tell you from experience, when you choose a design that has a lot more detail, you'll be frustrated a lot sooner because it takes longer to stitch out.
She's not wrong.
It is like, holy crow.
This is supposed to be like instant mashed potatoes.
Right, right. I didn't want to peel and boil and blend, and I didn't want to do all of that. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, like each stitch out is
forever.
The lightness of that quilting really is the beauty of it. And so don't get lost in that.
Yes.
I have done that, so that's why I'm saying that.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, if it's a small project, it's different. It's, you know, 4 hoopings or no big deal, whatever you pick. But if you're doing something that has, you know, 40 hoopings, because it's a biggin, you're going to be very mad about 5 or 6 in that you didn't pick the one that had less stitches.
And aesthetically wise, if you start small, you have to continue.
You have to continue. You can't change that and have it look like you want it to look.
That's right. If you're, you know, if you're quilting and you're doing maybe a semi-custom, you're doing an overall in the center, and then you're adding borders to the outside of it, you know, if you start a little bit bigger, you could always add in more detail later on.
Right.
But if you start with a design that is very tight, you're finishing with that design, or you're ripping out some stitches. Otherwise, your quilt is going to look a little funky.
Right. And, you know, so this is that book, which is the designs that you get in there. You can see that, you know, we've got large stipple, if you will. You know, this is a really open area. Even this one is going to be a lot more stitches than that basic one. So, you know, when you're looking at that, how big is your project? How much time do you want? You know, those are decisions that you do really want to look at.
That's right.
Because I can tell you from
experience. You want a time frame?
You're like, oh, that was a really bad decision. That was the wrong one. I did when the border thing came out, I did a 2-color border just because I was like, I wanted to try it and see. I was like, wow, I literally like tripled my time frame to finish the border because I had thread changes. I had to literally do everything twice. And it just was like,
maybe that was not my best
maybe
choice.
Not the best choice for what I was putting it in.
Right.
Certainly beautiful, but is that really where you wanted your time? So just think about things as you're moving forward. Just throwing that out. So those are the designs. I don't see any questions or anything popping up from there. So do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So the process of her designs is that you make a template. And I make my templates on no-show mesh. So, and I always do 2 layers, because if you've ever tried to stitch through 1 layer of no-show mesh, sometimes it comes out a hot mess. It doesn't actually stitch. It doesn't connect.
It's going to shift to hair.
It's pretty thin, yeah.
Yes.
So I always create my templates on no-show mesh. And even though I have a machine that has a camera and a projector and all of those different things, these are pretty easy to store, especially on no-show mesh. You can just fold them up and you can slide them with like your book or your pattern. It's a lot easier to see what you're getting into if you actually have a stitch out of the design. And I think sometimes it makes visual help because of the A and the B. So she recommends that you stitch out both an A and a B. But
at the top we've got
A
and
and then you have B.
So that's really what's happening, is it's the same thing flipped.
Yes. And so when you flip the design, your starts and your starting points and stopping points also sort of flip on the design. And that is because if you started on the left and you finished on the right, if you flipped the design over, now you would be starting on the right and you would be finishing on the left, but you want to start on the left again. So that's the only thing that sort of changes when you are flipping around the design, is basically your start and your stop pieces are going to be on top of each other. So I just write them in the direction of the letter. So A is A at the top.
When you're reading it, then what I can read
is start and stop
here.
Yes.
So the ones that are upside down, are
wrong.
Not that side. So there's B, and you can clearly read which side that would be the start and the stop on.
Yes. And so for this particular design, because the line is horizontal, I would want to make sure that I mark my quilt accordingly. So I would need to know how tall this design is.
Yep.
And I would go ahead and mark that. Now I could certainly turn this and quilt my hoop in a different way, so, but that sometimes can be more confusing because now which direction are your words going and what really is up and what is start, stop. So I would traditionally just follow.
Leave it the way that it goes.
Yes, follow the basis of this. And so what you do is you put your mesh inside your hoop. You put 2 layers of your mesh inside the hoop. You put your hoop on the machine and you stitch out the design. Then before you take it out of your hoop, you're going to mark your centers. So let's talk about the centers.
So this is a brother or Babylock 6x10 hoop.
You want to slide something
Yep, I was just going to say,
it.
we can't really see that, can we?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
So this is the notch, so you always have the right way up, and there's arrows for the hoops that don't have notches, so you always have the correct direction. And then the smaller machines, the big ones, don't have these anymore. We can order them for you if you are a diehard template user. But what we really want to point out is that your template shows you your center point. So you've got your crosshairs, and the grid is the entire embroiderable area inside of your hoop. So when we say that this is a 6x10 hoop, we can't tell you how many phone calls we take. Then someone, well, I'm using my 8x13 hoop. Yeah. That's not a hoop. which one do you actually have? So having that will tell you what hoop you're actually using, because the amount of plastic doesn't actually have anything to do with what is embroidered area.
Yes.
So that grid will actually show you. So this is the actual center. So what we really wanted to make a point out of is, can you see that notch and where that purple line is?
You see the purple line is
to the left.
Yeah, on our hoop to the left.
And it's the same, excuse me, at the bottom. It's on the left-hand side of the notch. And the center piece here can wiggle based on getting those tops and the bottoms. So that's why your notch shifts a little bit. So you have a big notch on the sides so that you don't snap it or whatnot as you're placing it in the hoop. But our point that we really want to make is if you are using your notches on your hoop as center, when you come to edge to edge, it's not center.
Yes.
So that little bit multiplied out, you're going to be off.
Yes.
If you're just putting a tea towel in your hoop and you're using that for your sticky and you just open it, it's fine because it doesn't matter. But for this particular type of hooping, it's definitely going to make a difference as it piles itself up. And when you go to match those points up, one's going to be at least 1/8 of an inch to the left, depending upon how perfectly you hooped, maybe 1/4 inch, and all of a sudden things aren't going to line up like you thought they were going to.
Yes. And so if I have a lot of wiggle room on my design, it doesn't matter as much.
Right.
Because I can still shift my design over. But if that design is taking up the maximum amount of space that I have in there, then I really need to look at a template in order to find the actual center of my hoop. This is not exclusive to Babylock and Brother.
It is not.
I would like to repeat that one more time.
This is not exclusive
to Babylock and Brother. No domestic sewing machines markings on their hoop are ever going to be
center.
The actual center of your hoop. It is going to be, it is
Slight
the
shift.
center of the actual hoop itself, but it's not the center of the embroiderable field
area.
And that is because there's always going to be a little bit more dead space on one side of the hoop
for your foot
or the other, depending on where your foot is.
How the foot is positioned on that type of machine.
Exactly. So, ours attaches at the left, and so, some embroidery machines attach on the right, some attach on the back. So that's going to shift a little bit where the excess space is. But just so you know, that is, it's always going to be a little bit off. I know we've got
not
that
really
terrible
working.
glare.
I'm trying, but there's just not a big enough space.
These designs, this particular design here, I have at least 1 inch of wiggle room in here. So I can use the notches on the hoop to make sure that I'm actually straight.
So there's the crosshair.
Exactly.
Trying to take that glare away from the crosshair at least.
So we can use the markings on our hoop to make sure that we are getting straight vertical and straight horizontal lines. But know that each time you put that in, you are probably going to have to shift
just a little bit.
Exactly. And you will likely need to shift in the same direction every time. So if you're like, what in the world? Every time I put it in there, it's 1/4 of an inch off to the left, or it's 1/4 of an inch off to the right, or up or down. It will be a consistent piece, but that is because the markings on the hoop are not the true center of the embroiderable field.
Right.
So hopefully that makes sense. You could probably, you could draw a centering mark in your machine, and you could probably then mark your plastic hoop where the center is. But again, as long as this design is not encompassing the whole design, you have a little bit of wiggle room. And most of the designers who create edge-to-edge designs, they do tend to
give you a little
bit of wiggle room.
Because they realize that's going to be part of it. Nobody hoops perfect. That's just not a thing. We're all human. Imagine that. To talk a little bit, if any of you were out there with a Luminaire or a Solaris and going, well, I don't have those grids, how would I ever know where center is? On your machine, when you're on your embroidery screen, in the top left corner of the screen, there's this button that says W. If you hit that, your machine will drop a crosshair. It's like a T. It projects a T literally into your hoop. So wherever center needs to be, you can see it visually right there. It's that simple. So if you've got a crosshair on your fabric, if you have a crosshair stitched onto your stabilizer or whatever it is that you're doing, it's it is. So there's a reason that they didn't include those grids. One was cost is everybody wants,
Yes.
less out the gate. So they looked at, well, what can we remove?
Yeah.
Well, nobody uses those things, and we've got that projector now. So that was one of the things that they took out. Again, we can get them for you. I think we can get them for all of the hoops. For a while, we weren't able to get the square one, but I think we can get that one now too. So if you are really wanting it, we certainly can. Maybe if I shift all of that to the right a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah, you're out of the glare now.
But just FYI, that projected crosshair is a beautiful thing. Make use out of it. And a lot of people don't know that it's there. It's literally just tap that little button. It's at the top left corner of your screen.
Yes. Will hoop grip help stop shifting of the quilt in the hoop? So, yes and no. I don't like to add personally, I don't add anything to my hoops. I don't add sticky to the bottom of my hoops. I don't add wrap around the inside of my hoop. I just
make it tighter, which
I just personally prefer to not add that stuff. As soon as you start adding that stuff to it, the sticky transfers eventually to my fabric, then stuff sticks to it. I break my hoop because I'm taking up more space. It can only pull in so much, so it weakens the...
It weakens those sides of your hoop were not designed for stuff to be wrapped around them and have fabric shoved in there and
yes. So I personally don't do those. I have been an owner of multiple brands of machines. If I broke my brother hoop because I put something in there and it cost me $100 to replace it, I would feel bad about it, but I wouldn't have a heart attack. But if I broke my Bernina hoop that cost me $500, I would have a heart attack about it.
Right.
So
for all of you brother and Babylock owners, you don't know how lucky you are. The parts really aren't as bad as you think.
Right. It's all about perspective. So I always tell people, you have to decide if the risk is worth the benefit. Right. For me personally, it's not. And because fabric is fabric, right? I can manipulate my fabric and I can shift my fabric around. So I'm really not that concerned if it's not absolutely perfect.
Yep.
And we are very, very critical of our own things. And I don't think if you handed me your quilt, I might notice that your points weren't joining up.
Say that.
But I wouldn't be like, Marilyn.
Let's talk about how you could do this better next time, okay?
Yeah. You could do better. You should buy a brother. No, I'm kidding. So, we wouldn't do that. And I don't think that other people would be, they wouldn't notice it. I think we're more critical.
We are definitely so much harder on ourselves than anyone else ever is.
Right.
Even on average, other embroiderers, and quilters, they aren't going to criticize you either because they know how it feels.
Right.
But I've taken classes where they say, okay, we're going to put this sticky on the back of the hoop, and we're going to center our top hoop to our fabric where we need it, and then we're going to put the fabric in the hoop and it won't shift. And okay, well, there's buttons on my machine that allow me to fix anything.
Yeah.
And then I'm not adding gunk and introducing extra stuff. So for me as well, I don't add that. I have tried it. And quite frankly, I don't think that it sticks well enough to really do what it's quote unquote supposed to do, but it does add problems. And so for me personally as well, to answer on the same question, neither of us add pieces into the hoop. We use our machines to make the corrections of our hooping. And at least on this type of something, this isn't something you're going to walk away. You've got a roll of a quilt in there. I'm tired by the time I quilted something because I'm holding the weight so that I make an adjustment for, I don't just let it flop around, I'm holding both sides to make sure, I'm extra cautious in that way more than trying to shore up my hoop.
Yeah. And that is a big reason why I like magnetic hoops, because it doesn't always hoop perfectly. What I can't do, let me rephrase that. What I shouldn't do in my standard hoop is I shouldn't tug on my quilt to make it fit the place that I need, because I will distort the fabric. I've got the top hoop going in, and you've got
that bump over.
Yeah, so you've got that right angle.
Up and over the outside edge. In a magnetic,
we're flat.
There's no bump. So if you pull to get a wrinkle, or your batting or the back of your quilt has a wrinkle and the front doesn't, and you're like,
it won't.
It doesn't. You're not killing anything like you are in a standard hoop, which is why we both always quilt.
Yes.
Sarah pretty much uses this for everything.
I rarely use my regular hoop.
But there, and we'll talk in a little bit about the new hoops from Brother and Babylock as well, which are even stronger hold than this.
Yes.
So that's what I used on the one that I did the edge to edge, is the Brother 10 by 10.
Yep.
And once it was in there, it was in there.
Absolutely.
When you set those magnets, they're not going anywhere.
No.
So there's a lot of things that you can do.
Absolutely.
And steps that we would personally take.
Yes. So let's do some stitching. So
what do you want to do?
Let's pull up an Amilee Scott design.
All right.
All right, and I have A pulled up in the machine. We'll have to put it in a 6 by 10 hoop.
Yeah.
Because it's bigger. We probably didn't mark anything on these, did we?
No, we didn't get that far.
Okay, so
you want to pretend to mark?
Yeah. So this design moves from left to right. So I'm going to just put a couple of marks on here. So we want to make sure, here's my template, all right? So I'm going to be stitching this design so that it goes this way. What's that?
Do you want to use the bigger one with edging?
I think this is fine. We're just going to do like a couple rows going this way. So I'm going to start with A, and I'm just going to mark. I just want to make sure that I can get 3 hoopings on here, so we should be good. So we're going to do, and I'm just putting a little arrow up at the top here, A, and then B, and then on this side, because that's how the whole process goes, I need to make sure that this is now the top. So this is how I mark them. Just
wow, that's really detailed.
Very
Sarah.
detailed, right? I put an arrow in the
so you know which way hoops up.
So because if I'm quilting like plain fabric or to use on something else,
you don't know what direction is up for the quilt itself.
Sometimes I don't. If it's just an overall design, it's really easy once you get the design on there, especially on the first one. Well, which way am I going? Did I do that? So I usually just put a little arrow up at the top of there just as a reminder to myself. So this is going to be an A, this is going to be a B, and then when we get back to this side over here, it's also going to be an A because we're rotating the quilt. So we're just going to hoop this.
Want me to move some stuff?
I think. There we go.
That was just a color keeper. Wow, what happened? Is that just thread? Oh, I thought it was shredded. I was like, oh my Lord, what happened?
All right, so I don't have a 6 by 10 hoop at the shop here. That is magnetic. So I'm just going to use this. So I didn't mark the quilt. If I had marked the quilt, this is exactly what I would be looking for. I would be lining up my vertical and my horizontal lines with this, getting it exactly where I want it to be, and then I would gather up the edges of my quilt.
Use your second set of hands.
Use my second set of hands. Make sure that this is really loose. And then I slide this in. I typically come from the top first, so I'm just kind of feeling where that is.
Especially when there's that notch thing.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to get that notch in first.
And then I'm just going to push that down. Okay, and there's a little bit of wrinkle in here, but honestly, it's fine.
It's not going to matter in the big picture.
It really isn't. When I go to the next piece over there, I can smooth out the area. So I'm going to leave it just like this. And I am going to make sure that my screw is tightened. And then we're going to bring this over to the machine. And
switch our pictures. Which picture are we using?
Let's see.
We've got a couple things going on here today. We're gonna attempt to
So a couple things. I have a standard, oh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I have a standard embroidery needle in here. I might change my needle based on the type of materials that I'm gonna be stitching. It's really great to do a practice stitch out to make sure that your materials are working well for you. You don't need to make any changes. I am using the same color and the same weight of thread in both the top and the bottom. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the differences between what it looks like on the top and what it looks like on the bottom. It can look different because embroidery designs are created to pull the top thread to the bottom. There are some things that we can do to alter that, but that's a more detailed
the no stress way to do this is to match your top and bottom.
That's right.
Bobbin, because then you don't have to go, oh dear, now I can see my top thread. And
absolutely.
It's not the same adjusting an embroidery stitch as it is adjusting a sewing stitch.
It is not. So here is what my screen looks like. So I have the design pulled up here, and my machine kind of defaults to the center needle position. So my needle is over here. If I wanted to have my needle go over to that side, I could touch this button down here. It's kind of got the needle with the plus and the button over there. If I tap that, it will take my machine over to the side, but it does not take me to the first needle position.
Right, it's just the leftmost edge of the design.
That's right. If I want to go to the actual needle position, if I were to touch the plus and minus button over here, and I tap the +1 button, what that does is it moves my machine and my needle over to the actual first stitch. This is what I use if I'm not using my camera or my projector or something like that. I always go to the actual first stitch and then
see where it's gonna go.
To see where it's gonna go. Now, because I am a quilter first, and then I was an embroiderer, I do typically pull my bobbin thread up to the top when I am quilting in my hoop. The easiest way to do that is to use your needle up, needle down button, but you can also use your hand wheel. So I just like to be able to have those tail threads on the...
so if we...
Yeah, I don't know. There we go. There's a tail thread.
Needle down.
Yep.
Needle up.
And then one more time. Now you can see down here, very small.
Very slightly, you can see there is red.
Yeah, there is red.
Do you need tweezers?
I've got it. Okay. So I've pulled this, and now you can kind of see that there are 2 threads here. So I'm literally just going to hold these sort of off to the side here, and we're gonna go ahead and start stitching. So I'm gonna hit the start button, and it will take a couple of stitches in place. Now,
I didn't do a very good job, did I?
No, you did a perfect job. And then
I lost one.
You can pull those out and over to the side. Now, there are two types of people out there. There are the people that are going to snip this thread right there. That's perfectly fine. And then there are people who are going to want to bury those threads. If you are the bury your threads type, leave those tail threads long.
Right where they're at.
So that you can do that. If you're the clip the thread person, go ahead and clip that thread.
And you're done.
So we're going to just go ahead and start again. And this is a really very quick stitch. Oh, it's not even on a... It's kind of amazing that that didn't completely...
go flying off the back of the machine?
Right?
Yeah. Little things. Details, details. So you can see how open this is. This is one of those beautiful simplicity things that no matter what your quilt is, you can put this on top of it and you are not going to hide the quilt.
Right.
You're going to see the beauty of all of your hard work, of your piecing and whatever it was that you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other, you can get a design that the quilting is what you're going to see.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This is beautiful. It's so simple, and a lot of people don't like that because it's just a squiggly line.
Yep.
I love the simplicity of it personally. I think that it's just a wonderful thing.
Yes.
You know, and especially if you are stitching this on something that's been embroidered and you have a lot going on, you don't want your top quilting. If you pre-quilted, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole different story, yes.
But this kind of thing, if you have, you know, applique with stuff, you know, this is perfect for something like that.
All right.
All right. Jump.
So we are going to pop this out of
I'll just get out of the way.
hoop.
And I'm good with that.
And here is where your templates and all that stuff are going to come to play. So I have my top hoop. I like to put the template in, and then I can clearly see through.
It's a little bit harder. You guys can see the grid through there.
Yep.
A little bit anyways. So we can see very clearly on our end where those points are.
Exactly. And what I want to do is I want to fold my template over so that I can actually see the actual start point of the design. So there's my little red knot, okay? And so now I'm going to, again, I'm just realigning my centers onto my hoop. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to slide this over here onto my fabric. And what I'm doing is I am matching the point that I started the design with the point that I am finishing with. Now, in this instance, I actually, it's a good thing I drew my lines here because I realized that I'm actually using my A template and I need to flip this over so that I'm using B.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
That's all right. So I've got my lines again, and I'm just flipping that over, and then I'm going to just slightly readjust where I put everything. And I promise this is not as hard as it looks.
We don't have a lot of workable space
here.
I'm
trying to do this in a slightly
and doing it in camera range is
smaller
not
space. So again, I'm just placing that, making sure I can see that, and gonna slide that over. And so that's gonna be where I'm gonna try to get this in the hoop. So I've picked it up, and again, I'm sliding into the top first, and then pushing this in. Thank you. It's nice to have an extra set of hands. All right. And what you can see is that this design is definitely in my hoop. So I definitely am going to have some overlap here. And that is what we're going for.
Yep.
So now,
if you didn't see a design in the hoop, you would not have been hooping correctly.
That is right. You would have the design in the wrong place.
You would have a very large gap between between the two.
And you know what I did not do?
Wrong one.
I did not put a B
on. Here, I'll take this.
Oh, thank you. All right, there we go. So now we are going to put this back in.
All right.
There we go. And I am going to pull up the letter B design. All right, so now I have B. Now I have a multitude of different choices on here. So again, for the whole world, everybody can go to the first stitch of their design. So I'm gonna go to the plus and minus, and I'm gonna go up to +1, and I'm going to see where my needle hits. So I am a little bit low on here because my needle isn't going exactly to the placement that I want it to be. I wonder if, nope, not much better. So
they can see
yep,
that it's all the way over, but that's about
it, yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust the position of the design. So I've got a couple of options. Do you think this will scan? Let's try it.
Sure.
So I'm gonna scan because when I scan,
you're in the middle of the design.
Yeah, you will be able to.
So this is camera.
Camera.
All right, so for all of you who have a built-in camera, taking a picture of what's in your hoop, we'll put it on screen so we can literally see where that point is. The first lowering the needle, as old school as you get.
Yep.
Everybody has the ability to do that. All right, so if you are using a smaller hoop machine that doesn't have one of those wonderful viewing features, then you can literally check by using your needle itself and then adjust with the move arrows.
Try to zoom in on the screen here. So this right here is my previous design.
Almost looks more like a shadow, but that is the red thread.
And the blue is my current design. So you can see I didn't quite get that where I wanted it to be. So I am going to close this menu, and I'm gonna go to my layout, and I'm gonna go to move, and I'm gonna slide the design up.
Until you see the lines meet, and look at that. I need to go with the right a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in addition to just moving up and down, we can also rotate a hair. So there appears to be a little bit more space between the loops on the bottom than the loops on the top. So if we rotate the whole design a little to the right, we can balance that. And then readjust and make sure our start and stop point is still meeting in the center. But what we are looking at is making sure that these are not overlapping, but
yes, not too bad.
That we're meeting but not overlapping, but touching in that center point.
I must have hit the basting box.
Uh-huh.
Embroider, yeah.
Layout.
Yep. I did. I'm like, wait, that's not my first stitch. Now we're gonna go back. There we go.
All right, so if we do a visual check, you guys can kind of see, do you want to move the hand wheel because they can see the needle coming down, I think. You can see that we are coming down literally right on that design.
Yep.
So we are touching that point. So cameras are a beautiful thing, but we do realize that, you know, we don't all have that. But that lowering of the needle, we all have.
Yes.
And in that positioning point, you can move all the way around to see the top left corner of the design. So if that top left corner of the design is over the stitching, you know that you need to move the top of the design. So on and so forth.
So I would normally pull up my bobbin thread again,
but
cut
this
the tail
is just
threads, but
a sample out that
that's right.
It's gonna probably just be thrown away in about half an hour. But maybe not half an hour. But
so this is it. This is literally what you do when you are doing an edge-to-edge design. You find a design, you figure out the direction that it's going to go, print yourself a template so you know where your start and your stop points are. Even though that's the Amilee Scott design way, it will work
it will work with anything.
Any design that starts and stops on the same plane, that will give you the perfect way to do that. And doing it on the no-show mesh gives you a nice translucent area for you to actually see where you're going.
So, since we just said that, this is, I'll show the back because it's probably easier to see the, This is a built-in in the Luminaire, just an edge-to-edge, and this is that same dress form that we looked at yesterday. And so once I had all the pieces on there, I just did an edge-to-edge concept. I just did 2 rows. But you can see that's all I did here. Maybe you can see. Am I?
There you go. Yep, that little area right there.
There's the meetup of the points. And so it doesn't matter whether it's that specific design or not, but using that same technique is going to enable you to do all of those. But that's, you know, there's lots of stuff out there to play with.
There is lots of stuff. So if you look at this on the camera, you've got your little join there.
So there's the zoomed out version. Much easier to zoom this way.
Yeah.
So there's your point. And again, you know, the pulled up tails is going to look a little different, but same concept.
Same concept.
All right.
Now we're at the end of this row, right? We're at the end of our quilt. So what we would want to do is we would want to rotate the whole quilt.
And then here is the other marking.
Reminder of the direction.
This is the way we want to be up. And we're going to do a third hooping here.
Yes.
With that going up.
Yes, and we are going to start back with A again. So we would not want to put our B in there. We would want to use the A again.
So that is the Miss Scott.
Yes.
Way to go.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you have to do. You just keep doing that over and over and over again. So Beth, do you use the same bobbin case as the regular embroidery bobbin case? I can't tell you the answer to that.
It'll depend on your thread.
It will really depend on the way the design was originally created, the thread that you're using, the needle that you're using, the material that you have in there. Always try to do yourself a test sew so that you can see how the design is going to look on both the top and the bottom. But you really will have to take a peek at those variables in order to do that. That, unfortunately, is a little bit more than we have time to do in this video. And so Steph is asking, you are having 2 A columns next to each other. Yes, and that is because...
But they're reversed.
Because let me go back to this presentation here for just a second. So on this video, or on this slide here, let me make that bigger. Whoops. So keep in mind, all right? So an A design and a B design are the same. They are just 180 degrees from each other, okay? So if you're looking at this screen up there, you do A, B, A, all right? And then you need to go back to the other side. We're rotating the quilt. The quilt itself is getting rotated 180 degrees because we started in the center and we moved to the right. So now we're going back to the center and then we will be moving to the right again, but we had to turn the quilt. So we have taken our A design, right? And it is now being, because the quilt itself is rotating, we do a second row of A's and then alternate with A's and B's, because the whole design, the A and the B, are now going to be basically upside down from the original set of rows. Right. So that's where this can be a little bit confusing, is that yes, in the center of an Amilee Scott design, you always have 2 rows of A designs, but they will be going in 2 separate directions, which is why I put those little arrows on my...
So you always know which way is up.
Yeah, so that's a reminder that you will do that. So
you start in the center.
Yes.
And you alternate to the right. Mm-hmm. When you hit the edge, you go back to the center, turn your quilt upside down.
Yep.
And now we're going to the right again, and we're going to alternate.
Yeah, starting with A
again.
And then alternating, yes.
There you go.
Exactly.
And then you're going to rinse and repeat until you do the whole thing.
Yes.
So.
All right. So
that was an hour of quick.
Yes,
right?
An hour of quick. All right.
How you do the Amilee Scott or
whatever. Yes. However we say her name. So
bless you, however you say your name.
Yes.
All right.
So let's talk about clear blue tiles.
Let's talk about clear blue tiles. So clear blue tiles are a lot of fun, and I find personally to be a pretty easy process. We have talked about them before. There are a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So here is my beautifully designed by Hayden organizer.
Yes.
And I've got all of the different sizes. I do have the expansion pack, so you get the longer. You get the shorter up to
8 by 12.
I think so.
And then I think it's 9 by 14. And
I think the 14 and 16s are in the expansion
pack.
So very similar. So you get water soluble pens in the kit, and I have them sitting here. I don't use them. So this is what I wanted you to remind me, make sure I didn't forget to say. Mm-hmm. So there have been a lot of postings and things of people trying to get this out of their quilt. So it's a water soluble, but it is not an easy removable water soluble for whatever reason.
And especially if you accidentally hit it with
heat.
If
you hit it with heat, it's
sets
never coming out, ever coming out. Don't do that. So this is just throwing that out there. We do have this pattern available on our site. It's a free pattern. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of kits left for the all the fabric that you need there. Just the reason I flipped this is actually so that you can see, I actually did use the clear blue tiles to quilt the whole thing. So that was all done. It's on the inside pieces as well, so you can see a finished piece. These are obviously all very different size pieces. So I picked a pattern, and I have consistent quilting throughout, no matter what size square I needed to fit those pieces. And I didn't have to worry about the loops not being the same size from piece to piece, because it doesn't matter in this system, which is what is so brilliant about it. When you do buy it, you do get a USB with seasonal designs, so the 4 seasons, and you get a free pattern for houses that
like
you can, a table runner type thing that you can quilt with different fabrics for different seasons is the idea, of course. So I've already pulled out the ones that we're going to use today. I just wanted to show you, there are a ton. So you definitely don't have to worry about not having what is needed. This is what we used in probably our last big demonstration.
Yeah, I think we did a video of quilting this.
We did. So there is a piece available out there already. And you can see some of those markings that are in there. And you can see that there's an arrow that shows which way's up. Maybe you can see that. Maybe that one's better. So there is the markings, and then there's these little notches on the sides. And that is the edge of the template. So why do we have all of those lines? Let's talk about that.
Yes,
all right.
Let's talk about that.
Is that
yeah. So
okay.
Diane is asking, what needle size do you typically use for edge-to-edge quilting? I know you mentioned it varied, but is there a go-to size to use? With needles, you have to pick that based on the thread that you're going to use. So if you're using embroidery thread, you can start with an embroidery needle, which I would start with like a 75 11, and then you can change from there. If you're using something that is a 40 or a 50 weight thread, 75s, 80s are going to be more than sufficient size-wise if you're trying to do a little bit of fun quilting and you're using some bigger threads, maybe some more standout threads, then you'll have to go to a slightly bigger needle. And then again, you'll have to pick the type of needle based on the overall look of the design when you're finished. Sometimes they look really great on the back when you have the same thread on the top and the bottom. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you'll need to change your tension a little bit, maybe change a different bobbin case. All of those things are the variables. But keep in mind, those are the same variables that we have when we do regular quilting. So it's not exclusive to quilting in our embroidery hoop.
And honestly, in a lot of ways, it's easier. Of course, you do generally want to match.
Yeah.
I have done it where it's not, and I've made it, and it's worked.
Yes.
You know, different bobbin than top thread.
Yeah.
And had it work, but it is easier.
It's definitely easier. It's much more
if you don't
forgiving.
have to stress about it.
Yes.
And I like no stress sewing.
Absolutely.
That's my jam.
Yeah.
So I have here just a it's a Kimberbell piece from a Bella box from a little while ago.
Yeah, we pieced it in the hoop.
We pieced it in the hoop, and Sarah sewed it together for me, and then I rolled it up and I took it home. Oh, I'll quilt that. Yeah, totally didn't get there. It was rolled up, so it's still in beautiful condition, but it's not quilted.
Right.
So I'm going to show you guys how to mark, because that is the beauty of the clear blue tile system, and then we're going to just do a single stitch out to make it super simple so that you guys can see the hooping aspect, the lining up, and how that works. So I have a 6x10, which it is clearly marked. It says border, but it doesn't matter. The border ones are the exact same as the finished block ones.
Absolutely.
But you do get border templates as well as block templates, but it doesn't really matter.
No.
They are the same. So the template itself has an arrow point, which is important. There you go. So the arrow point is, again, we need to know which way is up. So just like with the previous stitch out, we need to know which way is up, right? And we have a crosshair that we're going to put in there. This little box here, it says size on the template. It is telling you which size design to pull up. So I am using 2 different size templates. So when I go to put a different piece in underneath my needle, I need to know which size to use. So I can write in there either 4 or 6 or whatever, 4x6, whatever is going to tell me which one to pull up there. Because you're doing this for yourself. So it only has to be whatever makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is basically going to work out to have a 6x10 and 2 4x6 square. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but 2 4x6 pieces will basically go all the way across this particular piece. So I am just going to mix and match so that my little
so it doesn't look like defined lines.
It's not defined lines. I'm not going to just do 6, 6, 6, and then a whole bunch of 4s down here. I'm going to alternate the 6x10 and move it around a little bit.
You definitely don't want to do 3 6s.
No, definitely not. That would be like not a good idea at all. So I'm going to move this down so you guys can see. I'm going to start up in this corner. I don't need to mark the outside edge because that's kind of obvious, right? But I do need to mark my interior edge. And the reason that I'm marking those are so that I know where to line up the next tile. So when I do this, I know where to put the next one.
That helps kind of space them out evenly.
That's so that you have, yeah, but what did I just do? Don't follow that one. All right.
It's hard to talk.
It is hard to talk and
mark
at the same time. Absolutely. And I'm going to mark where I can actually see because it's not showing up on that dark. But I am going to mark my arrow. That is the important one. You don't really need this whole doodad, personally. I just need to know where center is. So you can certainly do the whole thing, but for me personally, that's overkill. And this is the 6-inch one, not the 4-inch one. So that's all I'm going to put in there. And I know then that my next one is going to go right there because I've got marks that I am lining up the edge of my tiles with, so on and so forth. It's literally this easy to mark. The only hard part, in my opinion, is the puzzle. So what sizes are going to complete your quilt top? And again, if you don't want to puzzle it, they can all be whatever size you want.
Yep.
All right. So if you don't want to do this, we could stitch over the edges, so on and so forth, and not have it be an exact fit. It could be literally whatever we want. That's the other fun part, is you get to make those choices. So I've got, again, edges that I need to know where to go. So I line that up and look at that. Right to the edge, which is what I'm looking for. I've got another crosshair. Can you guys still see? Okay. And I need to know the bottom. So now I've got one row marked. I'm going to move over. If I wanted, I could have started in the center and balanced out and then had an overspray if necessary. So you can do, that's the beauty of, you can do this literally however you want to do this. All right. So if I want the next row, I'm going to just reverse it. So I'm going to put the 6x10 here and the 4x6s on this end here. So line up the edge there, mark my center. Can't really see what I've got written in there. So I'm going to mark 6 there just because I can't really see that in the, I have a pink pen in red fabric where I'm supposed to write that. So that didn't really work out. But I do, again, need edges over here. And they've got lines on the templates where they're recommending that you mark. But sometimes, like what I'm doing, I'm not marking where those are because my pen won't show up there. I'm just marking so that I have something to bump up against.
Yep.
It's a very forgiving system, which is the other reason I love it, because you don't have to be perfect. You can literally just say, okay, that's good. Yep, I'm good over here. All right, so 6x10. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to, because I didn't have a really good mark over there because it was all pink, I'm just going to use that other one as a guide and mark my center point here. There's that. And there we go. Slide down, stay on camera here. Am I still up there? Okay. And again, it fits pretty darn perfect right to the edge of my fabric. And up doesn't really matter. You can turn it around. It's kind of an irrelevant direction, quite frankly, when it comes to a toss.
Yes.
If you are
type A, you might want them all going in one particular
you know,
direction.
if you need them to reverse because you are using the same size, you can
Mirror image.
You can rotate it, and so you have your arrows going the opposite. So this one would go this way, this one would go this way, and then vice versa. So that kind of like with the A's and the B's.
Yes.
It's going there. I think there's a.
So Steph wants to know, it doesn't matter that the designs are running perpendicular to each other.
Nope, it doesn't. But if I wanted to, I could have changed something and swapped them around and gotten a completely different set of sizes. So you saw the huge amount of selections that I had to pick from. It really doesn't matter. So you can literally pick whatever. You can have them, obviously you can't do an angle. That's the only thing you can't do.
Yeah, they don't work well.
You do have to, unless I did everything on an angle.
Right.
But the only thing that you have to do is fill the space.
Yep.
So if you decided to do, 6 by 10 here and then a 6 by 10 this way, I would have needed a 2-inch design going here instead of a 4. I can do that. I just get out a different template.
Yep.
Literally can change it however you want it to go. So the designs are not connecting. So there's no particular choices that you have to be specific about. And I'm altering the large design, so I'll have smaller, it's not all going to be exactly lined up.
More like a tossed design.
It'll look a little bit more tossed. That was the reason I didn't just do all 6s and then so on and so forth. But you can do it literally. Don't need that. I just need to know where to go down here. So that one is the 3rd. So now I just have line up with my marks over here. And again, I can turn that. It doesn't matter, is I guess what we were getting at. You can have them, so I could have this one going that way and this one going that way to make them a little bit different if you were worried about them looking too much the same.
So Dee is asking, what pen do you recommend?
So this one that I have here is a friction pen, which is going to go away with heat.
Which is a friction marker.
It is a marker.
Yes.
Yep.
The reason I like the friction markers better than the pens is because it's kind of got a felt tip.
Yep.
It doesn't
go in.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It stays on top of the fabric.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it doesn't. Sometimes if you've ever used a friction pen, sometimes you get a little bit of like a white line afterwards that you can have that. So the thing about friction pens or markers is that the stuff is going to stay in your product until you physically rinse it, like wash it away. If you were to not wash this, and like if we heated it away and we took it outside, the marks,
if it was really cold and you have a heat away pen, you can get some show back.
Yes.
If it gets really cold.
Yes.
So
it definitely, until it's been washed, because the chemical is basically still in there. You can use OESD has a new wax pencil out, which is white, which is really nice because there's nothing remains after you use.
Yeah, we got to try that. Did those come in yet?
They did, and we opened one, but do you think I can find it? And I looked for like 2 hours this week. So that one is nice because we don't have a lot of options for dark, and that one happens to be white. We used to use wax pencils all the time for our templates and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, that one is, again, you just basically wipe it away with your iron, and it's completely gone because it's just wax. Some people will use chalk markers. I have been known to use Crayola washable markers.
Yeah, that's one of your favorites.
The fine tip versions. Again, you just have to find something that you work with that you like, and always, always, always test it. Because just because it worked just great for me does not mean it will work perfect for you. I wish that I could say with 100% certainty that, this is the pen.
It washes out every time.
Yeah, it will never ever give you any grief, but there are none If I have a particular fabric that I am absolutely paranoid about, I will typically just use a little bit of painter's tape over the general vicinity where I think the center is supposed to be, and then put my template over top of it and mark through the painter's tape.
On the tape.
Because
I have marked tape before, just to make sure I don't have to deal with anything else.
You know, if I'm really concerned about, or I have a particular fabric, or I can't get any more of this fabric,
right,
and I'm absolutely paranoid about what might happen, I have never had a Crayola washable fine tip marker not come out of my project, but I am super careful about making sure that I don't introduce heat once I've done that.
So that seems to be the kicker. So
a lot of times heat sets
you know, and sometimes when you're embroidering something, you had to mark the original to get it into the hoop. So you used a water soluble for your crosshair to go into the center of the hoop, but then you had to iron something into the embroidery design. I had that happen to me once, and it's got a beautiful blue crosshair permanently. I haven't taken it home and scrubbed it, and I could probably get it out with a lot of effort at home. It's a sample here at the store, and it's my don't do that sample. But so far, I don't, you know, once you've gifted something, you know, if it's going to be in the house, for the most part, I have had very good luck with the friction markers. Again, I prefer the tip that is a little bit, it sits on top, it comes out pretty easy, it heats away well, and it comes in a lot of colors.
It does.
So it's easy to use from that perspective.
And back here, Marilyn, I wasn't trying to ignore your question about templates for magnetic hoops. I just knew we were going to be addressing magnetic hoops a little bit later.
I know I did this without, I was just going to show it and then I was going to do it again.
So the real answer here is no. There are no there are no templates.
There's nothing that comes with them, or you certainly could make one.
But there are, like there is a video tutorial on the Dime website on how to put the tape on there so that you are actually getting to the center of the design.
So there are actually measurement stickers that come with these. We don't have it on the store one here, but you don't want to just slap them on there. That defeats the purpose.
Right. And honestly, how I mark the center of my hoops, I use the Kimberbell centering design.
So do I.
Centered in my hoop. I stitched it out on tearaway stabilizer, left it in, and then drew a little dot on the top of my magnetic hoop where the center was, using that, because that was the easiest way to get to it.
I fully endorse what she just said. Literally drawing it on your top is the best way to go for here. The area that we're doing, and this is a 5x7 hoop, we're stitching at a 4x6. So again, we have an inch play. So if you're not completely in the center, you've got wiggle room. That's another beauty of this program is it's just a very forgiving program. But the being able to take that and center it and then extend that out is the best way to do that. The only other, I guess, problem is, of course, then your top, it can be moved around because there's no snap-in area specific. So you have to make sure that it's where it's supposed to be on the base, because if you are, you know, a half inch high, your center's not centered.
Right. It will
so you
matter.
Which is why there's no template, is because they are movable.
Yes.
So I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but that is the best way to fix that problem. So I did this while we were talking. You can see how simple. Oh, look, more hair. Let's not quilt that in. What do you say?
I say that's a good idea.
So the back, I have it completely flattened. I'm just going to pick that up. I had it upside down,
okay.
I know. So
it comes off a lot easier.
That's why I had it upside down, is because I knew I was going to go that way. So I've got my backing so that it's being caught, which is why you want to have that extra amount in there. And then again, here's my center point. So what I like to do is grab my center magnet here. So if I am off, so I can already feel I'm too low. So I don't just slap it down because that doesn't really work. What I like to do is get my center piece aligned, and then with everything smoothed out slowly, I don't know, is that what you basically do? If I am hooping stabilizer by itself, I actually snap it in here and hold the stabilizer on the outside edge, and then when I lower it, it stays tight.
Yep.
That's how I put in a stabilizer by itself. But I am definitely shifted to the right. I think we're going to need to come in at just a hair.
I think so too. I don't think we have that much wiggle room.
I don't think we have that much wiggle room. I wasn't sitting in front of it, so now I'm way too far over. That's what happens when I'm sitting to the side, and I don't know really why I'm sitting to the side. I think that's pretty good. Are we crooked?
It looks pretty straight here.
Okay. All right. So I've got my base fabric caught in the magnet. I'm nice and smooth on the back. You can always check that to make sure you don't get that pucker built in, because that's super duper annoying. It looks beautiful on the front. You flip it over and you're like,
what
oh,
happened?
bummer. So I've got a crosshair right here that we are going to align to, and we just take that over and slide that into the hoop. So just like what we did before, and maybe this time let's...
Okay, I found a new angle.
Look at you.
If I just
being
keep
all
fussing with the
fancy.
camera.
While I was over there fussing with stuff, you were playing.
Yep.
All right, so we are slightly off center. Whenever you're using a magnetic hoop, you always want to make sure that your top is over top of
and double check.
The base, because you can really cause some damage if you don't.
Because there's no edges. So
there
you
are
could
no edges.
Literally stitch right through your hoop.
Yes, and I have not personally done that, but I hear it sucks.
I've never done it on my little machine or my domestic machine, but I was at a class once where it happened on a multi-needle right behind me.
Oh.
Scared the noise that it made.
Ka-dunk.
Oh my God, it was a noise I will never forget.
Yeah.
It scared the crap out of me.
I've totally seen machines after they've done that, but I've not done it. So
I was like, yeah, it was pretty funny.
I think I'm a little too anal. I check and recheck before I ever stitch. But so I don't know if you guys can see from over there, but we are definitely a little low and definitely to the right, just a bit. So we are going to need to align. So first thing I wanted to show was that drop crosshair. So you can see that T. It's not just a dot, which the previous step down has. Actually, the couple steps down have a laser drop that will show you where your needle is, which, hey, that's better than nothing, because, you know, you can move your needle left and right and up and down to make sure you're on your crosshair. So super easy to do. But we can literally hit the move arrows and with that on, make that adjustment.
Is that your, it's right there. Okay.
This dot right here. So we're moving left to get on the bar. There we go. And now we just need to go up to get to the actual crosshair. So it's not a plus sign, it's a T, but let me tell you, you don't need the top one. It works really, really well. You can double check. The thing is if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter.
No.
It is that awesome.
Yes.
So you can see I literally talked the whole time I was doing all of that, because I ramble a lot. You guys have probably noticed that.
We don't do that at all.
No. There's no math. There's no, did I go the right way? There's no, oh crap, now what?
Right.
It's literally that close. If you are concerned about your edges, you can make sure that your foot's not going to catch the corner of your quilt. I wouldn't normally throw that big of a piece down, but you know, we'll just make sure it's where it needs to go. So if you of course don't want the foot to pull up in the hoop, that's no fun.
No.
So
should we go?
We are gonna go. So we're still in that red. It's gonna be really colorful, and I'm okay with that. So we're gonna work in that upper corner, which is the only area that I'm really glad I put that tape down. So that's the space that I was worried about. You can overlap if you want. You can stay right inside if you. There's really very loose rules.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this, is that it's just. I know roses and Christmas go together, right?
I mean, there's really nothing on here that says it's Christmas. It's a flower. There's a flower.
It's a flower.
Yeah, I mean, we know that it came in the Christmas one, but.
So, I'm just kind of, again, I don't walk away with this kind of thing because you just never know.
Right.
So that is the bottom. So there's a lot of space down here, but I don't know if you guys can see, probably not. That's the mark of the base of my design. So it's literally, I can see exactly where the edges are going to be, and it's that straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of swirly. I don't believe this is one I bought or got with something. I don't believe this is the, I don't know, maybe it is. I can't remember, it's been so long. I put, I think that's the only one.
Yep.
Is it gonna go back up there?
No, I don't. I think it's inside. I think you'll be okay.
All right. I put like every quilting pattern at one point that I had available that would do this on my stick, so that I could just pick everything that I had available to me. So I don't remember which ones are which, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But so I can't tell you if this is one of them that comes with it. I feel like it's not. I feel like I bought this one, but could be wrong.
Yep. So
it's done.
Yes.
And now I don't have to take the bottom off. We don't certainly have to stitch another one to get the idea, but which way am I going? Yep, that's the 4. Would literally drag, and I can now see really, really crooked is what I can see.
In fairness, we are crooked today.
We had the whole machine is I am nowhere near sitting in front of the needle. So, but you get the idea. I don't have to take anything out. I can lift my top, move it, and when sitting in front of the needle, realign, so I can see where my crosshair is to get as close as possible for the next hooping, so I have as little adjustment as possible. And then once I'm aligned, I do the same thing, I hit go.
Yeah.
So this one is the second 4 next to it, so I wouldn't want to do all of the 4s. I would want to, you don't want to end up with a bunch of fabric bunching, but it's literally this straightforward.
Yes.
So this is clear blue tiles, and I find it to be a lot of fun. It's very satisfying. It's like, wow, that was nice. So that is how I need to write down that color so I can at least do the rest.
Finish it? Yeah, okay, so we're gonna talk about the built-in Luminaire stuff. And so while I reset the camera a little bit to get the screen, how about if you show them the magnetic hoop? Would that be okay?
I can totally do that.
All right.
I just wrote down the thread color so that I can do the rest and have it match.
I'm gonna slide it over to your camera over there while I move this one a little bit around.
So you guys can see that a little bit closer real quick. that simple. You can go up, like I said, up and over those edges, no worries, and then you just add the next one in, and it will just keep going until you finish the whole thing. So we're going to set that aside. So this is the new Brother or Babylock 10 by 10. It is not 10 and a half, FYI. I feel like I'm going to pop a nail. It is 10 by 10, which isn't a bad thing. It's just making sure that you can see how I'm literally having to pull. These are very strong magnets, and you'll notice that there are 8 of them. So it is a very different system than the dime hoops. The big picture process is the same, but you know, I mean, your end result, what you're looking for is the same, but we
have a 5x7 hoop that is very similar.
It is set up the same. It's a much lighter hoop than this one. Should we do the big edged one?
Probably.
Oof. So with this, the differences are the magnets. So you can see the groove here. It's actually a
Stella got a
thick. I'm sorry.
This
I
said
didn't.
Stella, and then I said so. Stella got
Stella
a groove.
got her groove. I thought you were saying there's a groove on the back. I'm like,
No?
yeah, I didn't press it. Don't look. So you can see that there is a rise to this. It's not flat exactly like the other. It's not like our other hoops that you have the bend and on the fabric. But the magnets themselves, they have an arrow, so which one goes to the center. And it does come with a tool to pop these off.
Yeah.
When there's fabric in there.
Patty Ann says, save your nails, use the tool.
I know. Well, I do them myself, so if I pop it off, I'll just fix it when I get home. Telling you, I keep finding
nails.
Loose nails. I'm like, what's scary is when I've made dinner and then I notice I'm missing one, I'm like, when did that fall off?
You always use gloves.
I do, but I just still think it's funny. It's like, I like messing with Jeff. Anyway, so these little guys here are where you would pull, and the arrow is the center, you know, goes towards the middle of the hoop. What I really like about this is that you can smooth your fabric as you're putting it in. So when you put that in, you can literally use that arrowed edge to slide towards wherever you're going. Now you don't want to push too hard or else you're going to end up with puckering and moving your alignment or whatever. But if you are trying to get a wrinkle out, you've got a little, it's not an iron, but you've got a little edge there that you can use to get that smooth to wherever it is that you're looking for it to go. So we just have a very, oh, that is a metal base. It's just sucking that magnet right on over there.
Would you, so when Cindy was in Novi,
we can do that.
She basically put the hoop on the
and that's what I did
first, and then slid everything else in. So,
but to the point, if you don't do that, any of you that own this but haven't pulled it out of the packaging yet, when you go to put this in the machine, if you don't have any magnets on it, it's fine. But you'll notice that my foot is literally right at, I'm there, right? So if I have that magnet sitting on top of it, it's not going to go underneath the foot. So it does actually say this. And I certainly have tried to tell all of you if I happen to be the one that's passed it out. But you'll want to put the hoop in at this corner, turn it, and then slide it into your hoop guide. So that corner is where it's going to go. I have found twice when I was doing that big quilt, my bobbin ran out because I never took my hoop off, couldn't see it. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, this is going to be, I should change that before I didn't see
pay
it.
Attention,
So it was like, I actually couldn't get it out of here to get it
over there.
It was fun. So I had to pop that magnet I only had to pop that one because then it was low enough.
Right.
But just FYI, pay attention to your bobbin, guys.
Right. Now, if the bobbin monitor comes up, doesn't it give you the option to park the hoop?
It does.
But did you like? Because there's when the bobbin message comes up, there's a little picture of the embroidery arm over on the right-hand corner.
I just popped the magnet.
You can do that. But I think
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure that there is an option for you. It kind of lets you like lock the stitch.
I feel like I looked for it, and for some reason it didn't give me that. I did lock the stitch.
Yeah.
But I don't feel I don't know why.
Okay.
But I feel like I looked for it, and for some reason either I was too dumb to find it, or it was too late in the night for me to realize where it was. One or the other.
I totally see what I would do in my, because I always ignore that. Ignore it.
You just hit it. Oops, sorry.
And then be like, oh shoot, I really should have
I should have tapped that button. That might have been what it was, because I do the same thing as clear it, and then you're like, oh, I probably needed that button. Maybe that's probably what I did.
Yeah,
like I said, middle of the night, you know.
Right.
I tend to sew late into the evening.
Okay.
So, anyway.
So careful when you put the,
Just a note, pay attention to your bobbin.
Yeah.
Once you change it the first time, you'll know how many hoopings you can get out of it. And then you can pay more attention. You can count and be like, oh, I need to change that before I go to this next one. Which you have to, be awake to do that too.
True.
Little things. So a really great tip to be able to kind of do what we did previously and align things underneath it without having to move this in and out every time. So we have basically a fat quarter.
Yes.
That we have backing and batting on. Just plain old simple.
Yeah.
All right, so
we are going to touch the embroidery part on our machine, and the menu that we are looking for is Q. So it is going to be in the second row all the way to the right. And again, you will need a Luminaire with upgrade number 3 installed. If you've done the update on your machine, the number 4 tab will be taunting you.
But you can't play with it.
And so we are going to touch that button there, and you have 10 choices. I think, should we do the sewing machine?
Let's do the sewing one.
All right, because it's so cute. So we're going to select an option, and it's going to give you like a random thing on the screen. Just kind of ignore that for now. It's just there so
it's
that
just showing you what it would kind of look like.
Yeah, the different designs, it'll, they look different as you scroll through them. It's kind of like
I have to say they did a really nice job. These all look really good.
Yes.
But so this is what I was talking about. You can even see the darkness, how many stitches that is.
Yep.
Versus how many stitches like, this is or this one is. How much time are you putting in?
Right.
Right? So, think about that when you're...
Absolutely.
It's an investment, guys.
So then you're going to hit the set button. And I know the screen is not super clear here, but if you are following along on your machine with this video later on,
or when you sit down in front of it later, you're like, oh, I totally see what they were talking about.
You will be able to figure out where you're going. Yes. So from this screen here, it is asking us to input the information about the quilt that we are going to be using. So along the top, it has number 1, and it's telling me that I can choose a number between 7.87 and 118.11.
That's a big range.
Yes, and then there's arrows go in this direction. And then on this way, there are arrows going on this direction, which is our number 2. It says exactly the same thing. And then number 3 down here is the option for us to pick a hoop. And then your number 4 is a flip option, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we need to tell the machine how big the quilt is. So how wide is our quilt? So we're going to say 18. So we're going to just type in 18. So 1, 8. And then we're going to hit the set button. And it's automatically going to go to the second one.
Yep. And it's colored blue, if you can see that on screen. Yep. So we're over here now.
We'll make this 20. And then we're going to hit the set button.
All right.
And the next thing that it's asking me is, what hoop are you going to use? Here's the thing, guys. Not all of your hoops are going to be available for this. So if you're trying to look for your 5x7 or 6x10 hoop option, it is not an option. we are going to go through and pick the actual 10 by 10.
Because
again,
that's what we have.
This is a 10 by 10 hoop. It is not the 10 and 5/8 by 10 and 5/8
If
hoop.
you select the 10 and 5/8, you need to use the 10 and 5/8.
Yeah, it will tell you to select a bigger hoop.
Because it's not going to work.
And
so do make sure that you choose that. When I first started flipping through and not paying, well, it was the border pieces, but same thing. I didn't really pay attention that I could change that.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference because that's the math that the computer is doing for you is based on how much space it has to work with.
Yeah. And then there is number 4, which is a flip option. So when you select this, it's going to ask you, how do you want the design to join and marry? So my favorite version is the every other one kind of upside down. Do you have a favorite?
It depends on the design. You know, like something like this.
Like we wouldn't want to mirror that one.
Right. So I think it's funny. It doesn't want you to mirror that one either.
Yeah.
I usually just push it until I definitely don't usually keep it straight.
Straight, yeah.
The only time that it really, you know, if it's just loopies, it's not going to make a difference. Or a stipple, it's really not going to matter.
Yeah.
So if you choose either of those, not a big deal if you don't change.
Yeah.
Because big picture, you're not going to see a much difference. Something like this, you will notice machine,
Yep.
scissor, 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 scissor. So having an alternate option would definitely, I definitely think the flip up number 3 is probably the better.
Which I think maybe the reason I like this is because I've done so many of the Amilee Scott designs.
And that's what you're used to seeing it.
A and B.
That's what it's supposed to look like.
This is what you're supposed to do. But you can do whatever you want. And then we're going to select OK. And then we're going to
if you notice, your picture changed.
Yes, our picture
changes. So you can see what it would look like. So if you don't like the picture, go back and change your flip.
Yes.
Because it does give you a preview of what your quilting would look like.
Then we're going to hit next if we're happy. And we're going to get this weird screen here. It's basically telling me that if I wanted to complete this project, that I have a total of 12 pieces. So
meaning 12 hoopings.
12 hoopings, yes. And down here at the corner, this is
the important one. Don't miss this box.
That's right. I love that the default is a thin line, which is like a single
so
option.
Nice that if you do forget, it's not going to mess you up.
Yeah,
but
down here is where you can pick a single stitch versus a triple stitch. So I personally prefer to quilt with a single stitch, not the heavy looking stitch. And then you could pick a color. I mean, it's already red. We have red thread in there. You can pick whatever you want if you do not want that to be that way. But then you do have to remember, in order to
move forward, you have to click memory. And it will save the calculations. And it tells you right there that it put it in the machine's memory. So we all know where to find that. So we click OK, and we go, hey, look at that. It pops up automatically for you. So we're already in the machine memory, which is right here. And that very last saved item is going to be what you want.
Yes.
So it gives us actually
we got
all of the different options that you would have stitching the different sizes and so on, and that it figured out that you needed. So you have the ability to choose all of the different blocks. But what you really want to do, unless you screwed something up and you needed to go back and fix something, which we are not covering, is that first one. So what that is the programmable, I want to do my whole quilt button.
Yep, I'm going to walk you through each step section.
Tell me what to do and how to do it, please button.
Okay.
And there's the picture. So like I said, it literally tells us where we're going to start. It says upper left corner of the fabric. Attach your embroidery frame in the initial sewing position. So, yeah, you didn't saw white for a second there.
I know, and I bumped the camera here. So I'm going to slide back here so that you can do that.
We are, again, we have excess so that we don't have to worry about not having anything to hoop. And what we really want is to get this as close as we can, kind of like what we talked about on the clear blue tiles, to where it's going to be for actually stitching it. All right. So we need to move forward though, because otherwise it's not going to give us the position. So it's showing you, you're matching up that top corner. So we're literally, and I know it's white on white, so I'm so sorry. We're looking for this. Maybe that helped. Does that help at all? Probably not. But so that is the corner that we're talking about. So it literally says, use your move keys to align the upper left corner of the pattern with the upper left corner of what I just marked of your embroidery. So you click OK, and it pops into this screen, and then everything starts to move around.
All right, and now I'm gonna go off of the camera for just a second, guys, so that
she can change it and you don't get all seasick.
That way I can move it so that you can actually see what we're doing. So let me go to this for just a second while I redo this, so that you won't,
no motion sickness
today.
Right,
you won't really need to see what we're doing on the screen, but I want you to see what we're doing underneath the needle.
And if we need to go back to the screen, we'll deal with it. So again, this is the setup that it's giving us. So we've gotten to the screen where it says, find your corner. And on screen, since you can't see that anymore, we have layout moving arrows, and we have needle position options. So in the preview area of the screen, we have the whole design, and we have a crosshair in the upper left-hand corner. So in the upper left-hand corner of my fabric, which you can kind of see, I've drawn pink there. That is where I am lining up that design before I even put the magnets on, so that I know I am where I want to be. And then I can just start attaching. And what I generally did was I attached the top left corner and then hit OK. And it's going to say, okay, let's check for the angle also.
Yep, and it's giving you a picture.
So there's literally a picture showing you, here's the edge of the embroidery pattern, and maybe your design is on an angle.
Yep.
And it's saying move that point down to the edge. So we're going to literally do that. It's going to move back over here again. Oh, I'm sorry. I went too fast. I didn't realize you were changing.
I just zoomed out a little bit.
I'm sorry. So I am now looking at, I have a crosshair here, and I want to be at the top edge of my fabric. And I now need to, since we haven't already, if you were already hooped, you would be using the move arrows and everything on screen to adjust your pattern to your fabric that's in the hoop. So much easier to just hoop it right in the first place.
Yes.
So we can see exactly where to put it. So if you didn't have this hoop or a magnetic hoop, you could, of course, just, oh my God, are you serious? He was on there pretty good. So we have, everything is attached there quite nicely. And again, this is what I was talking about. You can literally, let me go the other way, smooth the fabric with that edge if you needed to. So if you had a bump somewhere, you could smooth it before you locked it in place. What you don't want to do is drag it so much you pull it out of position.
But if you have this hoop, or we highly, highly, highly recommend walking through this way. It will be so much easier than trying to figure out if you have everything.
So getting, what was that?
It's so small. I didn't make that one.
I did.
You could have used my template, which was like half a page, and just changed the pictures.
Oh, Tucker's so.
That's okay.
Tucker's
I thought it said
fun.
lick the gnome, so instead of luck of the gnome. I was like, when did we get that pattern? It was like kiss the gnome.
You guys really don't want to know the other half of that story. So we have all 8 magnets now attached, which means my base is secured in. I don't have that edge secured. Again, I can tape that corner down using a tape that you can sew through without worrying about anything else is certainly smart.
Yep.
You know, being able to tear it off easily is key. Because we are just doing running stitches here. We're not doing heavy stitches that's going to be an easy tear. Right. So if you don't have...
and we have the projector on here, guys. So the reality is we're probably not going to hit that open corner.
Probably not.
But if we just wanted to be 100%
I just want to make sure my fabric's not going to shift.
Our fabric
or
doesn't shift.
If it does happen to stitch up there,
yep.
that it's not going to catch the edge of the fabric and ruin everything before I've even started.
So should we hit go?
We can hit go at this point. If you are nervous that somewhere in that process things moved, you can hit your move arrow and it will go back to all of that. So again, I know you can't see the screen, but I am right back. The projector stays on until you start stitching in this entire program. So back by the move arrow, I still have positions and I can check all the way down and it allows me to see the entire area. So if you are like, okay, I just want to make sure that I'm starting right where I want to be, I can literally move all over before I ever stitch anything.
Yep.
So if you are nervous, you can certainly double check to make sure. So I can see my corner is going to be just fine. There's no stitching that's going to grab that. There might be a small area there. So, but once I get out of that, again, the projector stays on until we start stitching, but it's literally that straightforward. So that's it. And this is just a 2-minute stitch, so it'll take just a second for that to stitch out. We've got the scissors up at the top here. Hi. How you doing? Good. We have our pincushion making its way around. So I have been asked in the past, is there some way to add other designs into this system? And no, there is not. So I'm really hoping that there's an upgrade 4 that's going to expand this. And I still want that easy button to order pizza.
Yeah.
They haven't, I mean, it's wireless. It's connected to the internet. Why can't I order pizza?
Yeah. I would love it if what they did was they gave us one more upgrade for this machine. They gave us a custom option here, just like they gave us in the design center.
So we could add in the design center. So we can pull in an edge to edge that we want to use all of the tell me what to do features.
Yes.
Because really that is the big bonus of this, is that it's not foolproof.
Right.
Because you still can screw something up by, you know, your foot catching the edge of your fabric, or you only checked one point, not both points, and so you were on an angle and you didn't realize it. There is still ways, but they've made it as foolproof as possible, and it's so easy. So what we're getting now are the alignment points for row 2. So you don't really see this on screen so much, but we get this knot of thread here, and then in the next one we'll get an additional, it doesn't usually look that big. It caught a tail, so we'll get those all the way across so that the next line of stitching, you know where the top is. So it stitches these at the base of the design all the way across your row, so that row 2 has an alignment point. So it's literally built into the system for you to continue to be able to align the entire quilt.
Yep, on the clear blue tiles, we were actually drawing basically the bases.
We were drawing those bases instead of stitching them.
Yep, absolutely. So our screen, I know you can't read what the screen says, but it says embroidery is finished. Okay to connect the next pattern. So
we're like, of course, please
we're gonna
do.
Select OK.
And it once again says, okay, which pattern am I going to need to do? And then it shows you, which you guys can see, we have stitches over here and we have an open empty space inside the hoop. So it's showing you where to place your hoop.
Yep.
So we pop off our magnets. Again, you don't have to remove the whole hoop. If you are using a dime hoop, you can pop off that top one. This one is a little bit more secure because of all of these separate, stronger magnets. It is, I personally find it to be, there's no shifting.
There is no shifting, and really, if you're using this feature built into the machine, being able to put a side on at a time and shift your fabric.
And then adjust the fabric is huge.
It's so much easier.
So I don't think you guys can see, but we literally have a projected image already there. So we know approximately where we're going to need to be before we hit any buttons on the
Yep, and I'm going to just hit OK.
So
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you want to see that, this is the screen that we were talking about before, where if you're at an angle, it's going to give you points to adjust for that, which is fantastic. So we say, okay, and now it's showing me that it wants to align that center point. So I just threw this on here so it wouldn't fall while we were pointing.
Yep. So I've kind of got a wide angle right now so they can kind of see what's going on the screen here. And then we are using that crosshair to line up underneath. So I'll try to zoom in.
So right here, we've got the, if you notice my scissors are down here, maybe you can kind of see that. So it is flipped. So I'm not going the same direction that I was going. So we're coming down now. So here is my point, and we're gonna go that direction. So if I feel like I am pretty close, I can see the sides of my design as well. So I can lock in my fabric, of course. It's unlockable.
Yes.
So if we need to make some minute adjustments, it's not a big deal. So I can already, oh no, we're pretty good. All right, so that is the first point of matching that it asks you to do. So you hit OK, and then it pops up with that rotate screen that you guys couldn't really see before. So here is the top of my fabric, and I am on the same keel of where we were before. So we're just on the inside so that it's not really going up and over, because I don't want to have that foot catching, which is what I want. So in this instance, I don't actually really need to rotate anything. But can you zoom in on the screen at all?
Nope.
Oh. There's her hand. No.
Not a lot.
So that's fine. Right here.
It really shouldn't matter if you're looking at your machine.
Right, on your machine. So the top three are rotate degrees. We've got 10 degrees, 1 degree, and 1/10 of a degree. So I mean, we're talking minute adjustments. That is if everything lines up, but you just need to tweak. If you need to adjust the entire design smaller, so you need to squish it, or you need to stretch it, which obviously we don't need to do that on row 1 because there's no need to do that. And you're not going to really need to do that until you get to the end of a row and you're like, oh, I'm not quite to the edge of my fabric.
Right.
And you need to stretch it a little bit or something to that effect. But they give you keys that don't change the stitch pattern or the real size of anything. It just stretches things just a little bit. That allows you to complete everything and fit your space, so that if you hooped slightly off somewhere, even though it matched up, you started a 1/4 inch off of where it measured from, or something to that effect, or you decided to go outside of the fabric and it was you know, you didn't account for that in your measurements, you have the ability to make those adjustments. And they've built that into the system. So we have shifting the edge in or pushing the edge out. That's this row. We have pushing the bottom edge up or down on the next row. So you have everything that you need to make this fit perfectly in the hoop, which again is brilliant. And if any of you have done the border feature, that is the same type of alignment features that you have in there as well. Have you done this? Did you do the borders?
The only borders that I have done are basically just sample stuff. I know you did Love Notes, and I think you did Red, White, and Bloom, or no, Make Yourself Happy, Merry.
I did Make Yourself at Home. I did that one.
Boardwalk?
I did Boardwalk, and I did Love Notes.
Yeah.
Using that. So we now have all 8 magnets on. And I am happy with that point there. And so every time I did this, I don't know did you do the same thing? Did you go to +1? Because I did.
You know what, I didn't, but you definitely can if you want to double check. So I'm just gonna hit the +1, and you can just make sure.
And so you can see again. There's the crosshair, and you have the projection is again on screen until you hit go, so you can see what's going to stitch where. You can lower the needle if you're a little bit worried.
I don't think we're threaded anymore.
Oh, so sad.
But the project that I used with this, I was basically just playing with it, so it didn't matter. But if I were going to actually quilt my project with this, I would go to +1 and I would pull up that bobbin thread.
Right.
Just like we were doing before, because it's easier for me if I have all of the tails in one place versus the other. You can also kind of do that when you get to the end of a design. You can turn like the
end trim off
and then pull that up. So those are just nitpicking, really.
And there's a lot of knots.
Yes.
You know, if, for instance, when you have 40 plus, you know, versus the 12s, you know, it's going to make a difference.
It is.
Of you know, how much you're dealing with.
Exactly.
12 hoopings, I could deal with trimming all of that and taking these different pieces out and so on and so forth. But, you know, that was a lot of trimming.
It was, anytime you do quilting in your embroidery hoop, there is trimming. But honestly, trimming on a long arm too, because they also run out of bobbin thread. So, you know, it's not an endless bobbin. So there's always going to be.
Someday someone's going to invent that.
I mean,
it's never going to work well, but somebody's going to do it.
Right? When I piece on my Triumph in chain stitch, I feel like I have an endless bobbin because the giant spool of thread, but that's about the only time. Even on long arms, they have giant bobbins, but.
Yeah, those are definitely way bigger than what we have. But so again, you know, after I would hope you're going to start with a full bobbin. When you run out the first time, count how many times you were able to stitch, and then make a note and either, you know, cross whatever, count them, you know, like you're doing a knitting or whatever, and you're counting your rows, count your hoopings to know if you have the space to stitch or if you're going to need like right on that edge. You know, if you need to have more
and you can
coverage.
Check your bobbin after each hooping
because you're going to take the fabric off.
You're taking the fabric off, and you can see right there in your bobbin. So, you know, if I looked at that and saw that I was running low when I got to the end of the row, I would just change my bobbin.
Absolutely. It's not worth it. Let me tell you guys, that little bit of thread is totally not worth
and we have having the same picture, guys. So again, we're just going to keep rotating this over and over and over again. So,
yep. So the next one, the sewing machine is going to be on the bottom again.
Yep.
And we match up that point. That's the first point that it's going to have you meet. And then it's going to give you a rotation point. And so you line up. So on the rotation points with the next row, you're going to meet up with your registration marks. Yep. That's what those are stitched for. And the very first one, it gives you the ability to, again, stretch so that you go, oh, I need to be in line with my first, you know, so that you're, if you start,
your fabric isn't
if
straight.
you're, right, if your fabric's not straight, that you can make sure that you're staying in line and not gonna be off in the big picture.
Right.
So that's ooch and scooch buttons, when you start and finish a row, are where you're gonna really want those. I don't know that I would recommend doing them in the middles. It's not really worth doing that. It would be the end and the beginning, just to kind of, you can see where the stopping edge is, and you're like, oh, I'm really off of the last row. You can just scooch it out a little bit or scooch it in a little bit, and then you'll be a little more on par.
Exactly.
And then it all balances. Because, you know, you nook and cranny a little bit too, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but
it's that straightforward.
It is, it's absolutely that forward.
So, you know, you want to have an overhang of extra batting and backing so that you can hoop those edges without fighting. No fighting, don't want any of that. And you can tape corners or little bits down, but don't walk away. That's, you know, and if this was a large quilt, we would have that rolled in here. And I was, even with this hoop, I didn't want it to pull.
No.
Because it was a lot of weight.
And your embroidery module is only so strong.
You know, if there's enough weight, you can still move something out of alignment. So I was, with a full piece, I was still giving it love. I was very warm while I was quilting.
They do have all kinds of dime designs and machine embroidery. They have like rigs that you can put around your embroidery module to help hold.
Those are actually really nice.
Weightless systems.
It is actually a really nice system. When I first saw it, I was like, well, that's weird.
And then you quilted a quilt.
And then I quilted a whole quilt, and I went, oh, I get it. I wasn't a quilter at the time when they came out, and I was like, that's really weird. I'd never done anything more than just like, you know, little, this kind, you know, but even that can get heavy with all of this stuff, but like full quilt, it was like, oh,
yeah, wow.
That was a lot of weight. So, all right. So, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, just keep doing the same thing.
This is it. And the machine tells you everything.
Right.
And there is actually even video help in there too. So if you get stuck somewhere and we're not available, there's even video help in the machine.
There sure is. There's so much to do.
Once again, we do have an in-store option that you can come in, bring your machine, and stitch here. We will send out materials, what you should bring in and what we will be having for you to play with when you're here.
Yep.
We will send that out a couple of days prior to the class. So next Friday is couching. And the following Tuesday. The 28th is edge to edge. So we would love to have you join us. There are a limited number of seats, so if it's full and we need to add a date, we will certainly do so. So if you would like to come and play in store, please do so. We'd love to have you come in and spread your wings.
Yes.
So
have a little fun.
Thanks for hanging out with us for a couple hours, and we hope to see you soon.
All right.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Find the right button. Bye.
Lots of buttons.